If, like me, you've watched one of my videos and thought to yourself, he's amazing, he is. I wish I could clone him, he's that good. Then I'd have my very own British sci-fi. Well, this is the video for you, because I'm going to give you detailed instructions on just how to do it. And by the end of it, you'll have your very own clone of the decline and fall of British sci-fi. Fortunately, the first part of our plan is easy. All you need is access to a lab and a viable embryo. That is the easy part. The next part is the most crucial, but don't worry, I am sharing the secret recipe, because you need to know exactly what sci-fi and in what order to expose him to. So here is a definitive list, sort of the sci-fi that made me. Our first ingredient is the War of the Worlds. This film is the classic alien invasion story. This film single-handedly introduced me to the idea of cosmic threats and humanity's fragile place within the universe. But it's the tension and the suspense in this film that made it the cornerstone of my sci-fi education. I was probably about 4 when I watched it, and this film has been one of my staples ever since. Our next ingredient is The Day the Earth Stood Still. Now, I'm not going to dwell too much on this one because it is getting its own video very soon. This film just blew my eyes wide open, and it showed me that science fiction exists to provide social commentary, with Klaatu's peaceful message being delivered against the backdrop of all that Cold War tension and paranoia. And it taught me that also science fiction can explore some very profound moral and philosophical issues. Before I move on any further though, please hit the old like button. And if you really want to help me out, hit the subscribe button, because that does absolutely wonders for me in the old YouTube algorithm. And I really want this channel to grow. You can also follow me on X, and I'll put the link in the description for you. Anyway, moving on. Now at this point, your clone should be big enough to be introduced to the other neighbourhood children. And don't be afraid to let them give him a good hiding, because it's only going to toughen him up, and he'll need that for when he starts school. Because let's be honest, he's a little bit weird. Once you've done all this, feel free to show him Forbidden Planet. This is a very important ingredient, so don't get this wrong. It needs to be shown at this exact moment. For me, this film is absolutely perfect, and if I had a favourite sci-fi film, this film would probably be it. I've already covered it on this channel, and it was one of the first videos I made actually, and for very good reason, because for its futuristic setting and themes of advanced technology and ancient alien civilizations, at its time it had a very important message for a civilization that had just finished one huge global conflict and found itself in the possession of just the right weapons it needed to wipe itself out. But for me, watching it as a child, it's the film that sparked my fascination with space travel and the exploration of our universe, and also my love for science fiction that is on one hand visually stunning, and on the other hand, very thought-provoking. So at this point, you're going to need to add a little bit of whimsy. So you need to start showing your clone 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea. Now, I'm not going to lie, I love James Mason and I love Kirk Douglas. And in this film, they are great. But for me, this film is so important to the mix because, well, it's just such unbridled fun. And yes, it does explore some very adult themes surrounding empire and justice and morality, but it does all this against the backdrop of what is at its heart a really great swashbuckling adventure story. And it taught me at a very young age that sci-fi can be so much fun, and it's also left me with this sort of lifelong adoration of that whole steampunk aesthetic. For our next step, we need to add a little bit of British sci-fi, because this little bit of DNA is really important. Daleks Invasion Earth, 2150 AD. Now this film served as my introduction to Doctor Who, so on that basis alone, it makes this list. It also served as my introduction to really dystopian sci-fi as well, because it's full of these really gritty themes. And let's have it right, the Daleks are absolutely amazing, pure evil, but they're absolutely incredible. And as a kid, they are just so much fun. So for me, as a kid, this was the perfect storm, because yes, I was being introduced to Doctor Who, and at the same time I was being introduced to the Daleks, I was being shown this really gritty dystopian story, and it was set on the streets that I was growing up in. So this film really did help shape me. And it also left me with a fascination for dystopian sci-fi that I've never truly grown out of. And it was also the first science fiction film that I showed to my own kids that they actually really enjoyed. And sharing that experience with them, handing this down, so to speak, that felt really special. Our next film is as equally British, but it is far more disturbing. Quatermass and the Pit. Now, I'm not going to dwell too much on this film because I've already made a video about it, and like Forbidden Planet, it was one of the first films that I covered on this channel because I felt it was that important to the sci-fi genre. It was the first film that I ever watched that was about ancient aliens, and to be honest with you, I don't think there's been a better film about ancient aliens. But for me, it was the ending of the film that really got me. Because yes, it was very poignant, but I also found it to be quite disturbing. Because watching this film at a young age, I don't think I was quite ready to watch a film that would leave me without any closure, and indeed more questions than answers. But this is the genius of the film, and it's why I watch it time and time again. And once again, it was why I covered it so early on this channel. In actual fact, that video, like low-key, has been one of my most successful, because in terms of viewership, it's been, well, quite slow burning, but it's been very consistent. I'll put a card on the screen so you can go and watch it afterwards, when you finish watching this video, that is. Now, it's at this point that I recommend that every evening you go and read to your clone. Don't bother with Jules Verne because he thinks he waffles on too much. Play it safe, start off with H.G. Wells, but he'll also enjoy a little bit of Lovecraft, and the odd John Wyndham will do as well, and every now and again a cheeky 2000 AD. But don't spoil him, give him one chapter a night and that's his lot. The next ingredient will need no explanation because it is so blindingly obvious. If you have a roast dinner, you can have anything you want, but it'll always have roast potatoes. If you want to raise your clone of British sci-fi, you can have anything you want, but it'll always have Star Trek: The Wrath of Khan. Later on in this video, I will explain to you just how and when to introduce Star Trek to your clone. This was the first Star Trek film that I ever watched, and for me, it was just such a perfect introduction to the franchise. And like I said, this ingredient needs no explanation at all. It is just there. If you don't add this film at the right time, you won't get a clone, you'll get a pile of mush. So make sure you add this film, and it doesn't matter what version of it you show or what circumstances you show it in. All that matters is you show this film to your clone. And after we've added The Wrath of Khan, we need to continue with the sci-fi horror. Because, as I mentioned, Quatermass and the Pit is a very important ingredient, as is The Village of the Damned. But for me, the ultimate expression of sci-fi horror is aliens. And you need to pour that ingredient in quickly as well. When I first watched this film, I was blown away by it. It was my first introduction to the Alien franchise, and the first time I'd seen Sigourney Weaver outside of the Ghostbusters universe. It was actually the second DVD I ever bought. The first one was Alien. It is easily one of the most influential sci-fi films, but for me, this film taught me that big dumb action films often come with far more depth than we give them credit for. Now at this point, you can now start giving your clone the odd pint of lager, but don't ever stay for more than one, because 2 will lead to 4, and by that point it'll have you on the shorts, and you'll be having so much fun you won't be getting home till like Tuesday. Talking of big dumb action films with many hidden depths, Total Recall introduced this film slowly and then let it ferment for a little while. Because yes, on the surface it's a big dumb Arnold Schwarzenegger film, but I think Sharon Stone, who co-stars in this film, is actually a very underrated actor. And in this film, she is absolutely chilling. When I first saw this film, it absolutely enthralled me because it's full of action, it was full of violence, and it was full of gore. And then I started thinking about it because yes, it's about ancient aliens, it's about corporate greed, mankind's hubris, and Arnold Schwarzenegger's biceps, but it's also about identity. So yes, I love this film. It is one of the sci-fi films that made me. Now at this point, you can finally start properly introducing Star Trek to your clone. Now, you'll need to show it an episode a day at 5 o'clock on the dot over the course of about 2 years. And I personally recommend that you begin with Star Trek: The Next Generation. And after that, any Star Trek will do. You can give a bonus episode on a Wednesday at 6 o'clock, but on Fridays this must be followed up with 2 episodes of Red Dwarf starting at about 9 o'clock. And once we finish with Red Dwarf, you can start with The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. After that, feel free to start introducing whatever science fiction television that you want, although I do recommend holding off on the reimagined series of Battlestar Galactica until there's at least 5, and I only recommend that to stop him boring you with it. So for our final film on the list, it's simple. We've got Terminator 2 Judgment Day. Now this is insane. I was like 5 when I first saw this film. It's like rated 15, but I can remember getting given toys of this on my 5th birthday. Even after all these years, it's still one of my favourites because it is such an excellent blend of action and spectacle with truly great storytelling and absolutely fantastic themes. So yes, on the one hand, we have, like I like to say, a big dumb action film full of fantastic special effects and explosions and car chases with one of the most imaginative villains of all time, paired with Arnold Schwarzenegger at his absolute peak. On that alone, this film is absolutely perfect. But when all is said and done, at its heart, this film, well, it's just a road movie about a family. So those are the sci-fi films that made me. And at this point, your clone should be ready, and you can expect your first YouTube videos within a week. Now, if you feel like I've missed any ingredients, or you have a suggestion to add to the recipe, please let me know in the comment section. Also, I'd like to hear from you about how your clone turns out. Thank you for watching, and as always, this is just my personal view. Please hit the like button, and if you fancy it, the subscribe button. You can also follow me on X. I'll put a link in the description.
Sounds like the end of the world. Flames dancing wild, unfurled.